everybody. Welcome to the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame. My name is Paul Casey, and it's good to have you here. And today, the educational video series is going to feature competition, tournaments, fighting, kicking, biting, blood. And we're going to feature an Associate Master of the Arts, Mr. David Brock, and telling us all the great stories that he has. And let's all put our hands together. Please put your microphones on mute. And let's hear from Mr. Brock and feature him right now as our guest. Hello, David. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for having me. Very appreciate it. Before we get started, hope you don't mind. I have a reading every day. I always like to say and on my for the day. But I wanted to dedicate today's show to one of my favorite Kenpo masters of all time, Master Stephen Labounty. What a great person he was, great influence to me, to a lot of people. And I'm so grateful that we had him, when we did in our lives. He's a wonderful person. So I want to dedicate this whole thing to him. But I do have some pretty good words here. My instructor, Bob White, always talks about integrity and good character and dignity and stuff. And this was my reading this morning when I got up. It says, reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. I like that.
Thank you very much for sharing it. And while we're on the subject, you can tell us, what was your history with Mr. Labounty?
My history was always related to my instructor and him, Bob White and Bob Mitchell. He had a great student that was fighting during that time named Mark Foster, and I would follow Mark. Mark would follow me. Mark asked me to fight on a team with him and a guy named Kenny Blanche, and we won this team championship. I forget where it was. I forget where it was, but it was that kind of history. But Mr. White invited me to come up to the senior council, Kenpo Senior Council meeting they had up north, and it was a huge place. God, I forget, maybe Mr. White will remember, but it was everybody, Jeff Speakin, Steve Labounty, all these people. And Steve Labounty and them asked me if I would do the seminar while they had the meeting, because there was 150 people there or something or more. I said, sure. So I taught a sparring seminar there for Steve Labounty. And then the next day we did it again, and Steve Labounty taught the class, and I was in his class. And he was it impressed the way I did all the bag work and all that stuff with him and stuff. So I just fell in love with the guy. He's so humble. He's just a great man, great person, and I just took a hold of him. He was great. He was great. I'm very blessed to have just the best, martial artists in my life, Bob White, Bob Mitchell, to know Steve Labounty through them, quite an honor.
Did you watch him fight as a young martial artist?
He was before me. He was before me. I never saw him fight.
Okay. Let's talk about your history. You've been in the martial arts for how many years?
This is my 50th year.
50 years. Amazing.
Yeah. I started in 1970.
1970. What brought you to the martial arts?
Well, I had two of my best friends in high school. We were athletes. We were playing football and basketball, baseball, all that stuff. And our quarterback, his name was Bruce Fling, and he was an orange belt over there. And Mark Linden, my best friend, he was a blue belt over there. And they kept saying, because I was a pretty good street fighter in high school, I had a pretty good reputation, me and my brother. And they said, we think you'd be good at this. And they said, come and watch. Well, so I go over there and I watched bunch of guys training, and a couple of brown belts were beating everybody. And it was Bob White and Bob Mitchell. And they were tired, beating up on everybody, even the black belts and stuff. And so I was pretty impressed. And so I talked my mom into signing me up. I was 17 years old. But I did junior Golden Glove boxing, and I did judo for a couple of years before that on the Marine base with my dad. So I had some kind of fighting experience, and it worked well because back in those days, there was no pads, there was rear leg sweeps, grabs, takedowns, kind of a lot of judo stuff was involved with that style of fighting, and it worked for me, you know. So anyway, I took a lesson, and my very first lesson at the studio was with a guy named Dave Gonzalez, small Spanish guy. He passed away. Then another guy, second lesson I had with a little guy named Jeff English. Unfortunately, Jeff has passed away as well. And then my third lesson was with Bob White. And he said after the private, he said, listen, I want you on my schedule. You tell them you don't want to train with anybody else. I said, okay, no problem. Well, that's 50 years ago. So I never had another instructor besides him.
So
you
were not I'm sorry.
I trained with a lot of guys. After I had opened up my own studio in 1975, I went and trained with a lot of guys. I trained with a BKF and then go down to San Diego. And I had lessons with John Natividad, Darnell Garcia, just different guys like that to keep me up on top of the great guys. Because, Bob White could beat all of those guys, and so could Bob Mitchell. So I kind of made sure I stayed on top of my game,
You're not originally. We had spoken before. You're not originally from Southern California. You actually came from the Southeast area. You mentioned that you were from Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, North Carolina, and then you eventually ended up in Southern California. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How many brothers and sisters did you have, and did any of them go into the martial arts?
Well, I had a brother and a sister. They've both gone now, but my brother was a big influence for me in fighting. Okay, he was tough as nails. He was CIF champion in wrestling. My summer going into my senior year, he got killed in a car accident at 19 years old, and so the driver of the car was a brown belt from the studio that it was Ed Parker's Kenpo Karate School with Bob Perry, the head guy, and everybody was there. His name was Kenny Noble. Mr. White knows him, and Mr. Mitchell. They all knew him. He was a brown belt. And so I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth about him because he was the driver of the car. They were, drinking and all that kind of stuff. And they, drove off the top of a freeway, and Kenny lived and my brother died. So I had a bad taste in my mouth for a long time. But, I realized through the teaching of everybody that I was wrong. And it changed my attitude. I forgave him for that and moved on,
I see. Did your when you first initially went into some of these challenges you've had in your life, you've had numerous challenges,
yeah.
and we've talked about it, and you've shared that with others as well. One of the greatest things that I ever got to experience is knowing your sons. And let me just say, Justin was an amazing young man and just a tremendous person. Why don't you tell us a little about Justin?
Well, Justin was from my first wife. I married my high school sweetheart right out of high school. She was a homecoming princess and all that kind of stuff. Beautiful girl named Michelle. We all called her Mickey. And so I married her because I had gotten her pregnant early and wanted to, just one of those things, it happens back in those days. I wanted to be man enough to marry her. And I was going to college. I was an English literature major in college. I was scholarships in football and basketball, but I decided to not take them and go to work and raise my wife and my son. And that's when I got involved with the martial arts as well. And, then she and I split up after a few years, and she developed cancer, unfortunately. And I had married my second wife, Janet, who we are still together. We had 4 more kids. And so Dad and I have been together 42 years, a long time with our 4 kids.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, that's pretty good. But anyway, Mickey was a great lady. She died of a brain cancer, the same thing that my son Justin died of last year, brain cancer.
Well, there's a beautiful photo of your son and you behind you.
Yeah.
And I remember at the Hall of Fame dinner that he made the introduction for you into the Hall of Fame. And it was one of those perfect Kenpo moments.
Yeah.
I know that many of the people here have seen that.
Mr. White is the man who made me, of course. And I had to call him and tell him what I wanted to do and if he was okay with it, because he always introduces. He's got a lot of students in the Hall of Fame, a lot of fighters, and I know he loves to introduce them. And so, but I asked him if it was okay if my sons did this, and he said absolutely. go for it. Go for it. So that's what we did. We wanted to change it up a little bit. And because I knew I wasn't going to see my sons very much longer, my oldest son, Justin. And it was a pretty cool moment. And it was, as he went upstairs, if he went up, here, my wife just handed me a picture of the kids that night. So I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, we can, sir.
Yeah, that's all the kids that night. But he fell backwards. He had such weak legs, and he was trying to walk up the stairs, and he fell back, and my other two sons caught him. That was
Yeah, it was a very spiritual moment, and you could tell that there was a lot of love in there for you. And the graciousness of it was that you were inducted with also one of the greatest fighters, and you referenced him as that, even though you beat him.
Well, yeah, I have a great story.
Come on, let's talk
too.
truth. Come on, left jab here. Come on.
I think I helped Benny Urquidez become the greatest. I must have pissed him off so bad that he said, I'm not fighting any more tournaments. I'm going to just knock people out. So he went full contact and went undefeated. So
why don't you tell us about that story about you fighting him and what founding Grandmaster had to say?
Well, here's the deal. In 1973, I won the lightweight brown belt division. 1973, he won the lightweight black belt division and had the greatest fight of all time at the internationals with John Natividad. So the next year, everywhere he went, he was saying, I am going to take grand champion in 1974. Nobody's going to get in my way. I'm going to run over everybody. And I was managing a karate studio for Bob White up in Fullerton, and I just trained my tail off. And I would always tell everybody, I'm only going to train to beat one guy, because that's the only guy you have to beat. If you beat this guy, you're going to win. And his name is Benny Urquidez. And they said, okay. And that's what I did. I never trained to fight anybody else because I knew it was going to be him and I. I just had that feeling.
So let's talk about training. All right. What does it take to be a champion? What do you have to do to train to compete against somebody of equal talent?
And you better have the discipline. You better wake up in the morning and think, and that's what's on your mind. And I mean, we were talking, I'd only had my black belt for 4 months when I fought him. And so we were taught how to train by Bob White and Bob Mitchell, believe me.
Okay, so walk us through it. So I'm sitting here listening to you, Dave, and I'm hearing you talk about it, train. Walk us through, what were the fine points that you had to really improve to make the difference between winning and losing against Benny Urquidez?
I'll tell you what happened. The night before, I think it's the only time that we ever lost a team fight, Bob White and I and them. And we fought the BKF. It was on a Saturday. And Bob White made me the anchor. I was the last guy. Hopefully, if it was close, I would, come through. Well, we were down by about 6 points or so. And the last fight was with a kid named Al Hot Dog Harvey. They called him Hot Dog. Super fast guy. Well, we ended up tying at the end. He's over at Bob White's house around midnight, and he gives me a phone call. I'm already in bed. I'm ready for tomorrow on Sunday to fight. It's my first time at the international black belt. And so he says, Dave, this is Hot Dog. I want to give you something. He goes, are you fighting tomorrow? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, I want you to know I'm not. I got to go to work. But it's going to come down between you and Benny Urquidez. I said, well, I like that prediction. I said, because this is exactly how I feel. It's going to come down to us. And so the internationals were so big that year. It was the largest in history, 14,000 spectators. It was huge. We had to have 2 or 3 rings in a division back then, and they would break them down to the last 2 in each ring, and then they would put them together and fight. Well, that's what happened. I'm in a ring on one side of the stage. Benny and them were in a ring on the other side of the stage. And I liked it because I don't think anybody gave me a chance. I gave me a chance. My first fight was against a rated fighter named Bill Owens from up north. I beat him 5-0. I couldn't believe it. Then I fought Rabbit Goodman. Then I fought all these top guys. And I was mowing people through my division, my ring. But everybody was over on the other side watching Benny, which was kind of cool because I was left alone. finally they said, okay, we need to go over. There's only 4 of you left. You got to go over to the other side of the stadium here. And right when that happened, they announced, Ed Parker got a microphone. He said, listen, I want to stop all matches. The semifinals, lightweight finals is going to happen. And we've got the first match is the lightweight brown belt champion of 73, Dave Brock, versus the lightweight black belt champion of 73, Benny Urquidez. And back then there were no pads, right? Back then. So we go over there, and Bob White following me in the corner and so on. And so we bow in, we get the fight going. Benny takes me down, punches me in the face, blood coming out of my mouth. Because you remember, we were fighting on cement floors. And I said, no problem. And I turn around, I charge him again. He takes me down again. He's up 2-0. I turn around, I call timeout. I walk back, and Bob White's friend named Brian Strain, who I love dearly, believe me, and things like what he said to me, it really occurred to me. He says, wow, Benny's the greatest, isn't he? And I said, Brian, not today. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, because I'm done with this. And I went back and I reeled off 5 in a row on Benny and beat him 5-2. So, you know, I like that kind of stuff.
Did you change your strategy? Is that
Oh,
how it happened?
I definitely. I didn't just take off on him. I always had kind of a blitz, you know, so I worked my way and worked my timing and did my broken rhythm drills and stuff. And my legs were really good back then. People don't realize that Bob White was the best kicker in Kenpo Karate, and he taught us how to kick really good so we could equalize our hands and our feet. So my legs were pretty good. And so I hook kicked him in the head, and he didn't like that. And then I knew he would be charging me, so I was angle changing with ridge hands and stuff. And when it was 4-2, there was still a minute left in the fight. All this happened within the first minute. And I knew he was coming. I saw Benny tell someone, I want to kick his head off. Like, I want to take his head off. And so he jumps, throws a spin kick. I do a drop kick underneath the groin, which was legal back then. You could do groin shots and all that. And I lifted him with a drop kick to the groin, and that was my 5th point. The place went crazy. Bob White and I went crazy together and all that stuff. And so it was a great goal of mine to win. I didn't know if I would be winning it, but I think my mindset, because I just won my first grand championship in Las Vegas a month before. The Nationals in Las Vegas was always held a month or 2 before Internationals. And I fought Tom Kelly for grand. And then I ended up fighting, I beat Tom. And then I fought Tom the following year also for grand champion again. The guy was great. So anyway, so all this got me inspired for the Internationals. And I was so just exhausted from winning that title, the International Lightweight Championship. And Bob White and I were celebrating because I was the first black belt in Orange County history to win an individual title. And that meant a lot to me. So when I got up there on stage to go for grand champion, I fought Dino Garcia to go to grand, and he kicked the living crap out of me. So it humbled me back down, believe me. You know, Jeff Smith ended up fighting and winning grand champion that year. And I've been close to Jeff ever since. He's one of my idols and one of my heroes.
How many championships have you won at the Internationals?
Well, I fought in 80. Oh, at the Internationals, I won 8. I won, if you count the brown, that's 9. If you count my Kenpo forms to be, I won black belt forms once, so that's 10. But I won 8 fighting titles, yeah.
Congratulations. It's just a testimony to your hard work and your teachers. I guess the key, is you were focused on details, the specific details that would make the difference.
Well, I'd like to show you a picture of the 1974.
Please do, sir. Show us, let's walk through history with you.
About that one because, you know, because everybody thought Benny was going to be in the finals, you know, and I didn't. But anyway, this is a picture of the finals. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
If you can see me with my hands up in victory, there's no pads, bare feet, bare hands. And this is the guy on his ass down here that I dropped. His name was Ray Blue Steel Davis. He was the first black belt student of the great Jim Kelly from Enter the Dragon and all that.
Yes.
Right? So the referee, sitting referee is Chuck Norris. We had great referees, Arnold Urquidez, Aaron Banks from New York, very famous. Grandmaster Tino Tuliasega. And over in this corner is our good friend Tom Schlesinger. I'm sorry, Tom, if you're watching, you're out of the picture, but no, you're right there. But anyway, it was great. It was a great
Beautiful.
moment.
That's amazing.
Then I just got on a hot streak, man. For the next 3 years, I fought in 87 championships. I made the finals in 82 lightweight finals, and I won all 82. I never got beat in the finals. So
I don't think it was a hot streak. I think it has to testimony to talent and determination and focus. Okay.
And I had good teaching.
Yes, you did. So you also had other matches.
I had both Bob White was a very finesse and very, real stylish, and Bob Mitchell was just an animal. Just show you how to beat up people.
So you took the best of both worlds.
Between the two of them, I couldn't lose. It was great. I'm very honored to have been.
There's been a reference to some of the other competition. You also fought Steve Sanders. What was it like?
Well, that was great. He's a legend. He's the greatest. As far as the greatest lightweight Kenpo fighters of all time, I don't care if I was undefeated in the finals, but we all agree that he was the greatest lightweight Kenpo fighter.
Why is that?
He was just his technique, his speed, his timing. And I had so much respect for that guy for sure. I used to go up to LA and train with him, all the time. When I finally opened up my first school, I would go up there all the time. We'd train with him. He was phenomenal, great teacher. So yeah, I did fight him. I think end of his fighting career, though. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt kind of bad because I really did, put it to him, and he hurt his shoulder and all kinds of stuff like that. I felt really bad.
You hurt his shoulder?
He hurt his shoulder really bad. I did some good moves on him: sweeps, takedowns, heel kicks, a lot of stuff. And but that's okay. It's okay. You're in there to fight. And, you got to fight. So,
take us through some of your other fights. You said you have some other photos that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, 1974. So 1975. 75. There you go. So I started peaking, in the fighting career, and I started beating a lot of guys over and over and stuff like that. So I went to Mike Stone and Dick Douglas's Las Vegas National Championships, and I don't know. Can you see this?
Yeah, just bring it in front of you. Yeah, bring it right in front of you.
Yeah, right
there. There we go. There we go. Perfect.
This picture means a lot to me too, because in 1975 I was in shape. I was the greatest. You can see my neck; it was just really solid. I fought at 155 pounds. I was benching 250 pounds. Stuff. I was real strong. I hit hard, and very quick. And I ended up.
And you had a lot of hair.
And I'm not a prejudiced guy, so don't take this wrong, but I fought nothing but black guys all day. I had 8 fights during the day with so many BKF guys. I made the finals, and I fought Eddie Flax Newman in the finals. And then Cecil Peoples won the middleweight division. I had to fight Cecil to win that fight and go to grand champion. And so Cecil and I had a war. I was one of the toughest guys I ever fought in my entire life. And hit me as hard as anybody. I still remember him hitting me. He was tough. Chuck Norris was the center referee for that fight too. I won the fight, and then I had the light heavyweight lost to the heavyweight fight, but it was James Onest beat Sammy Pace. So James Onest, I had to fight him for grand. We had to go 3 rounds. It was tied at the end of 3 rounds, and then it was a sudden death thing. And I walked back to the corner, and my buddy Mark Lennon says, "Dave, just throw the fastest left-hand punch you can think of." And that's what I did. And I just lunged at James and hit him right between the eyes and won. And at the time, 1975, okay? And at the time, this check was the biggest check for a karate tournament grand champion. It was $500. So it's actually a pretty good check, because internationals would only pay $350, $375. So I love this picture because this young man here just found me on Facebook yesterday. He's the only undefeated little peewee fighter I ever trained. His name was Michael Duncan. He won everything, this young kid. And Bob White's going to love this. He's an incredible golfer now down in San Diego. So pretty cool. But that's 1975. Toughest tournament I ever fought in. More, well, besides internationals too. So that I went undefeated all through 75. And then in 76, at the end of the year, I became the #1 lightweight fighter. And that was pretty cool. But I had to get by some guys. This guy I'm fighting here is a former world champion from Texas named Ishmael Robles. And Ishmael, again, like Cecil, one of the toughest guys I ever fought. And that's Steve Sanders, the center referee right there.
I see.
So Steve Muhammad's the center referee. But that's in 1976 internationals. And I won that one. And I thought that was my year. I really did. I felt I really got screwed fighting to go for grand. I thought I won the fight. I lost to Bob Burbage. He knows I won the fight. I know I won the fight. And then Ray Shua ended up winning the grand. And I know Ray, and I know how he fights. I trained with him. We trained together really hard in Hawaii on this all-star team. And I think I would have given Ray all he wanted. But I wish I would have fought for grand that year. I think I would have had it. But anyway, that was 1976. So I decided to take a break from the competition, and I stayed out of it for a few years. And I came back in 1981 for only one reason. Again, I like a good challenge. Was they said that nobody else had ever won the lightweight title 3 times. Benny and I, Steve Sanders, were the only ones that ever won the lightweight title twice. I said, okay, that's good enough reason to come back. I want to see if I can be the first guy. So I trained really, really hard, came back, and beat another BKF guy in the finals named Alex Evans, who was a real tough guy too. But I won the 3rd title. And then, that was it. Then this picture is a great night. Bob White promoted this huge event. It was called, forget what it was called, something, the U.S. Team Championships. He had a who's who list of fighters who fought here this night. And a pretty good reach hand on this guy's head right here I put on him. But that night I fought Dennis Canasser too.
Really?
And that's correct. And I scored some points on Dennis, but he did a move on me that I think only 1 or 2 people have ever done to me. He took me down like a rag doll, And unfortunately, I landed up on top of him. If he would have been on top of me, he probably would have killed me. But anyway, Dennis did a beautiful move on me, man. It was great. And I only had one other guy do that move on me that he did on me. I was very proud. But unfortunately, I got the point because I ended up on top of him.
Well, we're on the subject. If Dennis is there, any thoughts there,
Yeah.
Mr. Canasser?
That was a fun tournament that Bob White put together. It was an all black belt team thing. And at that time, I don't think there was another one that was really like that. It was a lot of fun. And, it's always tough fighting a lightweight who's a lot faster. But I had a good time, and Dave's an awesome fighter. So to be out there with the whole group was it's really special.
Well, there you go.
It was fun.
Very nice. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate you getting put in a word or two on that. So let's go on to some things that you like to talk about. You're teaching now. You've been instructing. Can you reference any of your teachers, the things that you've learned from them and that you applied now to your students?
Yeah, absolutely. Be humble. No matter how great I may make you or how tough I may make you or something like that, it's not about that. It's about saving lives. Okay. We want to teach them, good skills to be able to defend themselves, but we also want to teach them how to become a good person. They have good character, some integrity, some good dignity, and that's what I'm learning. I mean, you'd be surprised. I still call Mr. White up and take a private lesson with him once in a while, right now. I mean, I do. I just went to visit him last week. I didn't take a lesson because I was teaching somebody else, but so you just have to stay moving forward. Why go backwards, and think about the bad things? Why be bitter about relationships and things like that. You know, show the love. You know, show the love. That's not hate. You know, there's so much stuff in the martial art world, egos and things. I mean, you know, I just want to help people. You know, if I can help Mr. White with anything, he knows I'm there. If I could help my brother-in-law, Bob Mitchell, who started the Martial Arts for Christ movement 15 years ago, I'm there. I helped him put the first two together. You know, I brought Chuck Norris and people like that for him, and it took off. And so if I could just help, you know, anybody, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, I do a lot of praying. I do a lot of praying.
Did you ever have a chance to?
I don't know if Dennis knows how much I pray for him. I pray for him every day. But
in your training, though, you've referenced certain people. Did you spend any time with Mr. Parker?
No, I did. I didn't start off with Mr. Parker. No, but I followed a lot of his philosophies, and I had the honor of being in a demonstration with him once.
And how was that?
Was great.
Tell us about it.
That was amazing. That was amazing. He was pushing something. I was a green belt at the time. I forget. He was pushing a big event somewhere. I forget what it was. It wasn't the internationals. It was something else he was doing, and I got involved with that. And he did a few techniques on me, and you know, threw me around like a rag doll. You know, I was. He's an awesome man.
I
awesome.
see. Now you were on. I'm talking about teams. You were on the Budweiser karate team. Tell us about that.
You know, Frank Trejo put that together, and I was on the. I think I was on the first one or the second one. I'm not sure, but Frank Trejo and he brought these gis that had these women floating in a cocktail glass printed on the back. I didn't know who we were representing, but we had a great team. And
was this a fighting team or was this a drinking team?
Yeah, I know. There were a few drinkers on that team, but we waited till we got done fighting. But they had some of Bob White's black belts on there, and I know a little guy named Jim Muse. I don't even remember, know Jim Muse, real fast. So we had Frank was smart, you know. He brought in two fast guys, me and Jim Muse. Then he brought in some really tough guys like Andrew Mazayoff and him. And then we had our great heavyweight fighter to match up with the guys named Jim Harriman. And so, you know, it was fun. It was fun. But
I saw a picture. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I saw a picture with Harry Krebs and Herschel Walker on there.
Oh, wow.
Now, you were not on that team?
No. That
must have been the previous.
The second one. It had Billy Blanks and had some other guys on there with Frank. It was and I heard that was a good team too. I don't know, you know. So,
did you ever compete against Frank Trejo?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
You know, Frank, he wants to throw you around and beat you up too, you know. So I just hit and run, you know. But I beat Frank when I was a green belt. I beat him when I was a brown belt, and I beat him when I was a black belt. So.
And you never let him forget that, huh?
Well, no, I don't.
Or he
I
didn't forget it
up in front of him because he'd, you know, pull out a switchblade and slice me all up.
Oh, come on!
No, I'm just kidding. No, you know, I didn't bring that up. No,
Frank, I had nothing but praise for you. Every time I saw him, even before he passed away, I told him I was going down to Bob White's tournament. He says, if you see David Brock, you have to say hello. I think he's the greatest. Well, that was one of the last things he said.
That's probably why he said that, because I had his number, I guess, for a while. But Frank Trejo is truly one of the greatest Kenpos of all time. You know, we know that. What a talent he was. He's the only guy ever to win Grand Champion in the same year, forms and fighting. So, I mean, my hat's off to that. I never did that. I don't know if anybody did that but him. So he was a great, great, great man. And one of the greatest moments of my life, because I don't know if you were around by then, but we all used to go over to the Hyatt there, right next door to the arena on a Friday, because Mr. Parker would sometimes have some fights, kickboxing, stuff like that. Well, Mr. Parker grabs me by the collar and Frank and brings us over. And he said to both of us, "I'm so proud." I'm sorry. I get a little emotional on this one.
That's all right.
He said, I'm really proud of both of you that you're representing us so well around the country and stuff. He goes, you know, You guys are beating everybody up, and I just wanted to let you know how proud I am of both of you. And it was pretty cool.
You know what, sir? There's no doubt in my mind Mr. Parker's smiling at you right now.
I appreciate it. He was a great man.
You had talked to me before we were discussing this, that you had a passage from the Red Book that you wanted to refer to, that you used to read to your students.
Well,
so why don't you share that with us?
It's a lot. It's 2 pages. I won't have to read it.
We'll just take and paraphrase.
I have this, I have this book here. This is the revised edition that was done in 1970. I've had it forever. I had the original one when we first started, of course, because when we first started, there was no yellow belt. And you went from white to orange, right away. And so I don't know when the yellow belt really came in, because I was already, I think, but this says 1975. And it's got yellow belt techniques in it and all that stuff. So I've never used the yellow belt. I go from white to orange, but that's okay. But still techniques are great. To me, if take what one of the great sayings that Mr. Parker always would say is, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Show me a guy who can master 20 techniques over a guy who can do 150 halfway. And so I took that philosophy to heart. And no, I don't know all the self-defense techniques, and I don't care. But what I do know, I think we could do it as good as, if not better than anybody. I know there's more forms than I know, but I don't care, because the forms we do know, we know as good as anybody by proof. I won the internationals in form, beating guys who did long 5 and long 6. And all I did was a combination of long 3, long 2, hard style, kind of Okinawan style that I worked with an Okinawan friend of mine. So it's not about the quantity that it's about the quality.
Yeah, but you have to have the talent too. And in your case, Mr. White said you could dance pretty good.
I used to. Yeah, I don't want to hear about that, but yeah, I won the California State Ballroom Dance Championships 2 years in a row.
And I know you can play the guitar and sing.
This is a true story. When I went over to Hawaii to fight on Mike Stone's team in '75, Priscilla Presley came. That was his ex-wife. She was dating Mike Stone, and she heard that I could dance. So we all went out to the nightclub, and so we got there on a Friday. We went dancing that night. We danced, her and I, all week. She actually started calling me at the karate studio. My wife would even answer the phone. Dave, is Priscilla on the phone? What's she want? And she offered to open up some dance studios with me. And I said, listen, I may be a dancer to you, but I'm a fighter to everybody else. So I'm going to fight. And she thought I was crazy. So now I look back, maybe I was crazy. Maybe I should open up some dance studios instead. But I don't know. My passion was martial arts, fighting, but I used to dance. Yeah, I used to love it. My mom was the greatest dancer you ever saw, so it was in the family.
So the talent ran within your bloodstream.
My mom was the greatest dancer you ever saw. She was amazing.
So let's talk about your fighting, your love for fighting, and the evolution of your fighting. So then you got involved with MMA. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I did. It was amazing. I love MMA, and I love it because of a lot of the judo I was taught when I was young came into play. I mean, the way I look at it, in the era of, the Bob White, Bob Mitchell, Dennis, and all those guys' era of fighting, think about what they did. Rear leg sweeps, grabs, takedowns, a little bit of ground fighting. The only thing they didn't do was jump on you and choke you out. What was it? There's no difference. So the wrestling came into play, like, great wrestlers. You got a picture of Tito. I got involved with, some wrestling guys. I was training. I was doing some stand-up stuff for, I don't know if you recognize this guy's name is Tito Ortiz. That's me and Tito Ortiz at my studio. I helped him with some stand-up on the Frank Shamrock fight. He wanted to do kickbox, because he was a great wrestler. His whole style of fighting was ground and pound, take you down and pound you to death, So MMA was great. Oh, yeah, let's go.
Whoops.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Whoop.
There we go.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So as you think of that era, it was the same thing. Look at the fights that are happening today. A very good friend of mine was on that card Saturday. His name is Alex Perez. He won by rear leg sweep kicks. his trainer is Colin Uyama, and Colin and I are very close, very good friends. So his rear leg sweeps were destroying this guy. He never had to punch him. Well, that's what I was taught by Bob White, Bob Mitchell. Now, we were rear leg sweep crazy fighters back in the day, and follow up, and do takedowns. I mean, it was important back then. And I think they could say what they want about him, but that pretty revolutionized the style of fighting. The only difference is the choke. 51% of wins are in striking. The rest is ground. Ground about 45%, 48%, 49%, whatever. But the striking dominates the MMA now. They strike until you can't take it no more, and then they take you down and they'll choke you out.
Yeah, but any particular styles or that you see that are more prevalent, that are more effective than others in the striking?
Yeah, wrestling.
No, I'm talking about the strikers. What do you notice? Just the people that spend more time boxing, more people doing some kind of combination like Muay Thai. What do you see? I mean, what is it that we're seeing that is the more successful of this?
A lot of boxing, and they come in with the elbows like Muay Thai. Muay Thai is very important to MMA. Very important. Rear leg sweeps to the thighs and everything, coming in with the hands and the elbows. We got one of the greatest trainers in the world just blocks down the street from my house, and I go see him all the time. His name is Rafael Cordero. He's actually training Mike Tyson over at the gym right now, blocks away, and stuff like that. So he's a great trainer. I watch him a lot. And one of his fighter guys fought for me, and a good friend of mine named Ricardo. And so I love MMA. I was sitting at a fight in Anaheim in 2000, 2001 or something, and I looked to my buddy and I said, I think I could promote this stuff. He goes, really? I said, yeah, I think I might be able to do it. And so 2006, it became legal in California. Isn't that amazing? I mean, you think MMA's been around forever, but not really. It was around 98 it started, getting hot. But in 2006 is when it became legal in California. So I threw my name in the hat. And I went to the meeting. I got invited. I went to the meeting. And sitting to the right of me was Oscar De La Hoya. And over here to the left was, Scott Coker, president of Bellator. Dana White's up in the front, blah, blah, blah. It was big. There were hundreds of people there filing to be a promoter in California. And the commissioner came out and said, okay, I hate to disappoint everybody, but we're only going to call off 15 names. And I went, and I guess I'm out. So, but I had a letter written about me from Bruce Buffer, the announcer, Bruce and I have been buddies for about 38 years now. We've been very good friends. And he put a nice letter in there about me, letting people know he thought I could be a good promoter. And so they called my name off 5th out of the 15. Didn't call off Oscar De La Hoya or anybody. They all had to leave. The 15 were left in the room. And I'm looking around going, wow,
Congratulations.
Cool. Well,
let me ask you this.
You needed a lot of money,
Right.
These guys had millions and I had a couple hundred. So there was a big difference.
Let's talk about that a little bit. MMA. Would you consider Kenpo Karate mixed martial arts? Would you consider Kenpo Karate a mixed martial arts?
No, it's street, man. No,
it's just flat out street.
I think it's the most dominating street fighting system in the world. That's my opinion, no doubt about it.
Do you believe in groundwork then?
We're good at it.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask you something. Let's go right to it. Do you believe in groundwork then?
We needed a little more groundwork at the time. I think one of Bob White's black belts named Jeff Newton, he made it to UFC and got to fight. And his ground game just didn't show up, and he didn't win. But, what a great kickboxer he was. He won King of the Cage and all that. He knew how to do it, but once he kind of switched to a little more jiu-jitsu ground, stuff like that, his game got a lot better too. I think Jeff.
But I understand. I understand. In the sport context, it's a different thing. Boxers have their rules. The MMA has their rules. But with Kenpo and the street, there are no rules. Yeah, so I'm trying to ask. So how much ground do we really need to know? To be in Kenpo?
Yeah, I'm going to say it again. I think we're the most dominant street system in the world. You know, but you better have confidence to do what you can do. You know, jiu-jitsu is great. I mean, you know, Mr. White knows that I've been with a lot of jiu-jitsu people, Juju Ghazi and these guys. I've trained with them and stuff, and yeah, they're fantastic. You know,
When you
great.
train with them, do you punch them in the face when they're trying to grab you?
No, I tap out.
Oh my
I said,
goodness.
enough.
Bob White, did you hear that? He tapped out. Did you hear that, Mr. White? With that in mind, we are now going to go and open and ask some questions. And I'm going to start with Bob White. And Bob White, I'm unmuting you. So I would like to hear what you have to say to Mr. Brock. You're open. You're wide open. Hello, Mr. White.
It's just great to listen to David. He's had such a great and successful career. And I think at this time, he's probably the finest man he's ever been. So to hear him share his experiences is a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, what an influence you've been on him and Kenpo in general, both in the ring and in the school, and you lead by example. Thank you, sir. We're looking forward to hearing more from you in the near future, too.
Well, can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Okay, on Tuesday, Mr. White's going to be on a different show with one of the stars with American Gladiators, Darren McBee, and he called me, wanted to know if I wanted to go. So I can't wait to drive him out there and watch him on this show. It's going to be cool.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate
Great,
that.
I look forward to it.
Moving right along, let's go down to Brian Duffy. Brian Duffy, are you there, sir? Mr. Duffy, I unmuted you. Can you say hello to Associate Master David Brock? Brian? We've got him unmuted. I hope.
He muted himself.
Are you there, sir? Brian?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Say hello to David Brock.
Hey, Dave. How you doing, buddy?
There you are. One of my heroes right there.
You're my hero.
I love
fella.
Brian. I love Brian Duffy, man. Brian's one of my favorite people of all time.
Every time I go to California, I always want to see you.
Yeah, I love you, Brian, for sure. I'm just really disappointed you never had me down there in one of those camps.
Well, you know when it is. We'll try to get you down.
What I got to do? ride a horse over there and get there or what?
We'll make it happen. Don't worry. We'll make it happen.
Hey, I can bring some stuff over there, I can tell you. But, yeah, I'd be honored to be there.
Okay. We'll set that up. We'll set it up for sure.
See, everybody, you hear this?
Brian, before you go, give us a story with you and Dave. Okay? Can you share something?
You know, I would see Dave all the time at the internationals. I mean, that's most of the times that I don't get to California very often. So most of the times that I saw Dave was just at the internationals. We'd interact there. I have no memorable stories other than I think he's a great guy, and I'm very happy to be associated with him.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate that. Let's move right on and go to somebody else. Right now, we're going to go over to Brian Strain. Are you there, Brian?
Yes, I'm here.
Why don't you say hello to Associate Master Brock?
Hi, Dave. How are you, my friend?
Mr. Strain, good to hear from you.
Yes, well, you've always been somebody that I've admired through the years, and only disappointed I've never had a chance to fight you myself.
Well, you're the guy everyone always said I was coming after. I mean, you were the great lightweight fighter at the time, and they said, you know, you'll be the next Brian Strain. That's what they always used to say. I said, wow, I can't imagine, you know. So to take after you on that's quite an honor.
Well, you've outdone me.
What's that?
I think you've outdone me. I didn't win as many internationals as you did.
Nah.
Brian, thank you so very much. Let's move on over here. Greg Hildebrand, are you there, sir? Greg? Greg, are you still there? Well, I hope so. We've unmuted you. If not, we can come back. Okay, let's go over to Joe Rebello. Joseph, are you there?
I'm here, sir.
Say hello to Mr. Brock.
Mr. Brock, it's an honor and a privilege. You know, as a historian, you can't talk about Orange County Kenpo without talking about your fights. It's just not possible. And I had a couple of quick questions, if I may.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to finally get to quote unquote meet you through this meeting. My first question was, like you said, you talked about the old days where the takedowns in Kenpo and whatnot. I was very fortunate to work with a gentleman by the name of David German, who he was really doing one of the first MMA, before MMA was cool, tournaments. And I thought someone had mentioned that you were involved in those. Were you ever involved in those tournaments?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, they started out in Long Beach, some of them. Dave was around, but I got to meet Mr. German through. I'm sure you know Mike Knoll and Jim Eliason and those guys. They were under him and Dave Kimball and those guys. So that's how I got to know Mr. German. But yeah, Dave was tough. Tough guy.
Now, I wanted to ask you, there was one famous tournament that was famous or infamous, depending who you talk to, the Paul Walk event that ended up finishing with Steve Sanders versus Jeff Smith. Were you involved in that tournament when that happened?
I was not. I don't know where that one was. Are you sure that's not the?
Yeah, I think that was 75. You stopped in 73. I wasn't sure. The last most important question, is there any footage of you fighting available through YouTube or any social media so some people can watch some of the highlights of your fighting career? Has anybody ever posted any of that?
Thank you,
Boy,
Joseph.
I tell you now. See, now you're gonna open up a can of worms, because I had a black belt friend of mine borrow 7 videos of me fighting all of these big fights I had, and moved to Hawaii, and he had them in a storage, and he lost the storage and lost all those videos. I was very upset. So I know Mr. White has a video of us fighting some teams, and that's about it. I mean, I wish I had these individual fights. Someone had said Frank Trejo had the fight on film of me fighting Benny in 1974. I wish I had a copy of that. I talked to Ed Parker Jr. A few weeks ago, and he told me to try to contact his sisters. They may have an archive of videos of some of the internationals and stuff back in the day. So I haven't done it yet. It wasn't my top priority, but and then another thing that just happened 2 days ago, you mentioned Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith is looking. He thinks he has the copies of him on the front cover of 74 when he won the internationals, and I'm in it, and has stories, pictures of the lightweight and so on. But I wish I had the films. I wish I had some films of me like on teams, but not individuals. I wish I did.
Thank you, Joseph. Let's go to Steve Orsino. Steve, say hello to Mr. Brock.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, there's my man.
Good to
This
see
guy's
you.
great right here.
You're looking good. You mentioned all those fights during the 70s and whatnot. I was there, watched you fight. Remember those
I
days?
used to watch you fight.
Yeah, well, I watched you fight.
You were great, man. You were a great fighter.
Yeah,
I remember.
it's all fun, right? Those bare knuckle days were the best, I think.
Thank you.
But I like the spinning elbows, and that's
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
Good seeing you. Looking great.
Yeah, thank you. Where are you at?
I'm up in Sacramento. Yeah.
Sacramento?
Yeah.
You're sitting on the beach?
I know. I'm on the beach in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Hey,
There was a
listen,
song by the Mamas and the Papas, and I think Steve is thinking it's California Dreamin'.
right.
All right, enough with you, Mr. Orsino. Let's get on here and go to somebody else. All the way from Chile, let's talk to Rodolfo Constrant. Are you there, Rodolfo? Hello, sir. Are you there? I am not. He is on, but he's not there.
Yeah.
I'm here, Miss.
Oh, there you go,
Hey.
Rodolfo. I met Rodolfo down in Florida several times. A very talented fighter. Rodolfo, say hello to Associate Master Brock.
Hello, everybody. I'm very excited. The history I like because I'm fight too. I like the stories and where starts the very big masters and his stories.
You're fantastic. You're one of the greatest Kenpo forms guys. And I've ever. Do you remember when you got mad at me?
Yeah, I know.
But you got to remember, there's 5 judges, not just one. So
Yeah, but you're the one that counted because he knows you.
he got mad at me. But I love
That's
it.
number team. Yeah,
I
the
love
golden year
Rodolfo,
of
man.
KKC.
You know, I love a man that stands up for himself, and you stand up for yourself, Rodolfo. I appreciate. I got a lot of respect for you for that, and because I would do the same thing. You know, I fought guys with all 3 referees from the same school. You know what I mean? And you got to beat the refs. You don't have to beat the guy. You know, and you were phenomenal. And what happened was, I think some of the other judges, I don't think it was me, but some of the other judges just didn't grade you the correct way. Like, where were those guys from? Some guys were from Germany or something like that, and then you took second. And you should have taken first, because I voted you first. So remember? And so I just have a lot of respect for you, my friend. A lot of respect. I want to come to Chile. My wife is Spanish. We can speak. We can understand.
Yeah, welcome. If you travel here, please contact me.
My instructor, Bob White came, right? He went to Chile. I don't know if he saw you there, but he was there with some people.
I traveled. Mr. Brian traveled here to Chile. Bob White traveled too.
No. Good. I want to do my broken rhythm fight videos training, a seminar. I want to come to Chile. I did a seminar for the Schumans in Guatemala. Packed. We sold out all our videos. Everything was great. And I do my broken rhythm, fight style and stuff, and it works.
Thank you, Rodolfo. Appreciate you coming in here. Let's get to another person that I hope he can shed a light on a few things for us. If I can get him to come on. Let's see what we got here. Let's go. Well, first of all, before I get to him, let's go with Zach Carter. Zach, you're up. And why don't you say hello to Associate Master Brock?
Hey, Mr. Brock, how you doing?
Oh, good to see you again.
I remember when I was talking with you, kind of excited. My daughter just won Grand Champion, and you were the head judge at Stan Witz's tournament, and you just kind of looked at me, really?
Wow. Yeah.
But any good stories about when you've been judging with other fighters, or?
Yeah.
Anything you can share?
You ever heard of Jose Pacheco?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard of Drew Christian? He passed away. They used to call him Bowie. Okay. They had to fight for Grand Champion in Las Vegas. Okay. And it was a great match. Well, Jose was up by 1, and he kept running away. And I called timeout, and I said, listen, if you do that again, I'm going to award Drew Christian the point. And he did it again, and he didn't think I was going to do it because I'm good friends with both of them. I called timeout, and it was at Stan Witz's tournament out in Vegas. And I gave him the point, and it tied it all up. And he was furious and blah, blah, blah. Overtime, Drew Christian wins the fight. And I almost started a riot with everybody, It was amazing. So anyway, it's good. It was good. So
one more thing. I saw your DVD there. Where can we get those?
That's a great question. I have, you can go to my emails. It's called DB4kicks@yahoo.com. DB4kicks@yahoo.com. Just email me, and we'll get it out.
We'll make sure all this information is put on the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame, and we'll make sure that we can do that. Thank you, Zach. Now I'm going to make it bloody. It's going to get bloody right now.
No way.
And we are going to say hello to one of our friends here, Mr. Cecil Peoples. Cecil, say hello to Dave Brock.
Hey,
Where
Dave,
are you, Cecil? Hello, sir.
Are you telling some tall tales over there?
Yeah. Did you hear me tell him that you hit me as hard as anybody?
No, I didn't. I'm just jumping on right now. Hang on. If I can, uh-oh.
It's all right.
If I can get set up here. Okay.
You jumped in at the last second. Cecil, tell us about what it was like to be in the ring with Dave Brock. The truth. Come on, Cecil. We can't handle the truth.
Well, it was kind of hard to beat him when all his people were judging and refereeing.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Wait a minute.
You know,
I'm not with Chuck Norris. What are you talking about?
you know, to tell you the truth, I barely even remember that. I know it was in Las Vegas, and I don't remember who the judges and stuff were, but they weren't anybody I knew.
Is that how it has to be in Vegas? Stack the deck or what?
You know how it is in Vegas.
I know, I live here. Okay.
You know, but
well, everybody thought Cecil was going to be the guy holding the grand champion trophy. That I can tell you the truth. He was the #1 middleweight fighter. He won the middleweight division that day. I won the lightweight. And I told my buddy Mark Lennon in the corner, I said, listen, all I got to do is get by Cecil. I think I can win this thing. And so we had a war. Cecil put my head between my shoulders, man, right in about 30 seconds. And I knew I was in for it. So I just kind of angle changed and did things like that on him. He was fast, quick, hit like a freaking brick, man. He's truly one of the top 3 guys I've ever fought in my entire life. He was great, man. So
did you hear that, Mr.
I'm so glad
Peoples?
we're friends.
Did you hear that, Mr. Peoples? He's being nice to you now.
you know, that I barely remembered that. You know, I would probably have my mind on going out there looking for girls and.
Don't be telling us your true secrets here.
I was going out looking for women and gambling.
No, in Sin City Hall. No, come on.
I'm going to tell you, you're not lying, Cecil. You had an incredibly gorgeous-looking girl sitting next to you and waiting before you came up on stage. I saw her. She was gorgeous. So
I don't even remember who. I don't remember.
Oh Lord. Good answer.
Hey, but listen. When I got into the MMA business, Cecil, he was my referee. Top guy. I had him and Herb Dean and John McCarthy and all kinds of guys, and it was a lot of fun. You know, I tried to do some good shows, and they're tough. That's the toughest job in the world to promote those things. So really tough.
It's 10 times worse than kickboxing, and it's 100 times worse than karate.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Well, we got to pull it off. Sometimes they turned out good at the end. Sometimes it didn't. But you know, at least I always paid you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I did get paid. But you know what happens when you do shows like that? You got to go through the boxing commission. And
yeah. No problem. There's no problem. Yeah.
I think in California right now, MMA has sunk so bad. There's only one promoter in Southern California anyway, and that's Dennis Warner. And every once in a while, I think the UFC comes maybe once a year, and Bellator comes once a year. So you're only getting maybe 3 fights or 4 fights a year in MMA. California made it rough for promoters, and all the promoters have backed out. And they don't, or either they go on the Indian reservation and they can do it without the boxing commission.
Well, I've been asked to do them again. I already talked to the commission. They do like the shows that I put on, but they're just real hard. You know, you got to cross your T's and dot your I's. But I'm thinking about going to more amateur fights instead of the pros because the budget's a lot less. And so they said it was a great idea, and I said so. So I'm working on something right now, but it'll come out once everything opens up.
Well, if you're going to do amateur boxing, kickbox, MMA, you're going to have to go through ISKA.
ISKA? Yeah.
Yeah, the ISKA. They're the California Athletic Commission sanctioned him to do all the amateur fights because they couldn't.
They took over from Camo?
The boxing creation can't make any money off amateur fights.
Did they take off from Camo? Camo's not doing amateur?
Camo, I'm sorry, yeah. Camo does amateur MMA, and ISKA does amateur kickboxing.
Yeah, I don't want to involve with that. I'm all about MMA. So I've already got the commissioner already talked to me and stuff and said he liked my idea how I was going to do it, and just let when everything gets back to normal, let him know. So.
Well, probably
no hurry. I'm in no hurry, but we'll see how it goes.
I don't know if it's going to be this year.
Not till next year. Yeah.
And maybe Dennis Warner wrote me the other day and said he may not do a show until the end of August, if that.
Yeah. I talked to Raul Parada yesterday. Yeah, remember Raul?
Yeah, I know Raul. He's in Arizona. He's in New Mexico.
Prescott, Arizona. Yeah. He's
in Arizona now?
What's that?
He's in Arizona now?
He's in Arizona now.
Yeah, he's been in Prescott, Arizona for a while. Yeah.
Well,
it's good to see you, Cecil. How you doing? Is your health okay? Everything good?
Yes.
Good.
What'd you say?
How's Squeaky? Is it Squeaky? What's your
My
son's name? Yeah.
Ski-Wee.
Ski-Wee?
Yeah, Ski-Wee.
Ski-Wee.
Yeah. How's he doing?
He's doing very well. His wife passed away. She had
oh man.
She had
our condolences.
Thank you. She had breast cancer. And she lost one of her breasts, and then a couple of years later she lost the second breast, and then she had cancer in her spine, and then it went up to her brain, and they sent her home, and they told them she probably won't live but a couple of days, but she lived a week, and then she passed away.
Yeah. Well, my good friend's mom passed away yesterday, and then I went to a memorial on Thursday to one of my really good black belt students out in Murrieta. So it happens. Life does things. Did your son and her have kids?
Yeah, I have two granddaughters now, a great grandfather now.
Oh my Lord, Cecil! It is so good of you to come on here and spend some time with Dave. I really like this. We're going to change and call it the Cecil Dave Show soon because it gets all mixed up, boy. Thank you so much, Cecil. Be safe. We'll talk again. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
God bless
Cecil.
you.
Love you, buddy.
Let's move on to a couple more people. We're going to go here and say hello to Wes Hibben. Wes is the son of Gil Hibben. Obviously, Wes, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wes, why don't you say hello to Mr. Brock?
Hello, Mr. Brock. How are you, sir?
Hi, Wes. How are you?
Doing good.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. Enjoying the history.
Be well, Dave. Be well.
See ya. Love you, Cecil. Okay. Love you, buddy.
I'll talk to you, Paul.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, anyway, Wes.
Yes, sir.
I
didn't have any questions. I just enjoy the history of and like listening to the early days and the international karate championships. I always enjoyed listening to my father and his stories. So this is nice to hear all the other opinions and hear all the stories from those early days of the championship.
That's great. Yeah. Did you compete, Wes?
No, I never competed in the internationals.
Okay.
We were living in Alaska when my father was flying down to the internationals, but I never got to go.
How far back does your dad go?
78 is when he got his black belt, I think.
Oh wow. Okay. That's great.
No, sorry, 68.
Oh,
I was going to
68.
say we needed to correct you on that one.
It was 68. He got his black belt in 68. So he's been doing it a long time also.
One of the things I do to black belts, I tell them, I say, when did you get your black belt? What was the date? I said, River, I got mine April 20th, 1974. I know exactly when I got it. Why would you forget the most important date of your life as a martial artist, and that's getting your black belt? You know, understand? Yeah, I mean, that's just something I do. Even some of my old students.
That's a good idea. Before we sign off, I think we should ask everybody that. I'll go first. March the 21st, 1981.
There you go. Good job.
After 3.5 hours I was dead, sweating, bloody mess on the floor. And that wasn't me. That was Steve Orsino. But what can I say? Okay, let's move on, Wes. Give our very best to your father. I look forward to hearing back from him sometime soon. And then we'll go down a couple more, and then we're going to wrap it up here. Let's go to Galaxy number 10. I don't have a name here, so I'm going to shoot in the dark on it. Introduce yourself, sir. Hello?
Oh, that's me, Ruben.
Hey, Ruben, what happened? Don't you don't pay your bill or what?
No, I'm on my phone. Hey, Mr. Brock, how you doing?
Hey, I remember that guy.
You remember me? When
So
I was
you're at the Galaxy. What? I remember a Galaxy place. It was a strip club.
Oh well.
There's a place called the Palmina Club in North Hollywood, and there's one here in North Las Vegas. Don't get them confused.
I don't know anything about that.
Been there. I am Mr. Brock.
There
nice
he
to see
is,
you.
Ruben. How you doing, buddy? We're putting their smiling face out there. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, doing good. Just seeing Mr. Brock here and remembering all the histories. You know, unfortunately, I never got to fight, as a black belt, Mr. Brock, but all of Bob White's people at the internationals and everything else.
Wow.
And, Pasadena, Costa Mesa, and Conway's Valencia.
Oh, cool.
Like places to were like the three teams or the three schools to compete with over there.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in Seattle, Washington right now.
Oh, wow.
He's in the bunker.
Yeah, I'm in the bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of Frank Trail's black belts.
My wife has relatives in Yakima.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to Steve Orsino and Paul Casey used to teach me also.
Yeah, that was back in the day, Ruben.
Back in the days.
Yeah, he was was one of Frank's favorites. Let me just say that him and Mr. Parker really took Ruben under his under their wing, and Ruben's just a wonderful man. A lot of that, adversity in his life, but you could never tell because he's just a beautiful soul. And I'm really grateful that you've been doing this, Ruben. It really means a lot to us that you're going to be a part here. Thank you so much. Be safe.
I'm trying to get back at it.
Yeah, you got.
Thank you for being a part of it.
Get the hell out of Seattle, Washington, and come down here.
All right.
I got a great story about Bob. I got a great story about Bob White and I in Seattle.
Really?
I don't know if you want to hear it real quick, but Bob White and I drove up there in his Jeep, and the top wasn't working, and it started raining and pouring on us while we're driving his Jeep. No cover on the Jeep at all, and I was driving, and we had to get off this off ramp real quick, and we started spinning, and we thought we were dead coming off this off ramp, and finally we hit the side, the where the grass was and everything, and the Jeep stopped. But anyway, I was a brown belt, and I ended up taking third. It was Steve Armstrong's tournament. I don't know if you remember Steve Armstrong, but it was his tournament, and it was a big tournament. Anyway, on the way back, we were short a little bit of money, I think, gas and food, and so we didn't know what to do. But anyway, Bob says, well, I'm pretty lucky on roulette, so I'm going to go put, I don't know how much he put, 10, 20 bucks on this thing and hit it. So we ended up having steak for dinner, and everything was good.
I guess it's good. There are some benefits with hanging out with Mr. White. We're going to end this up now with finally Dennis Knatzer's back. Dennis, you have any questions here for Dave?
No, it's just great hearing the stories. I got to say, and Dave can probably concur as well as Mr. White. back in the day, you mentioned a lot of people: Benny Urquidez, John Natividad, Bob Burbage, Mike Stone, so on and so forth. And today we just don't have those names like we did in that golden age.
I
Today
agree.
it's nice to have stories about working out with those guys: Joe Louis, Bill Wallace, Chuck Norris, Carlos. But it was just a wonderful era to be with those guys, and had the opportunity to work out with pretty much all of them. They were a lot of fun, and too bad a lot of other people. And that's what's good about Paul Casey's thing. I got to take hats off to Paul. This is a great thing to bring people on and to share those stories with people that maybe were there and knew it, and people that weren't there that can share those stories with things that we did and who they did it with, and all that kind of thing. A lot of the new guys don't know who Benny Urquidez is, or some of the old guys.
Yeah.
So Pacheco brothers, they were. Go ahead.
Hey, Dennis, can I tell them about the quick story about our team coming to fight your team in Arizona?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. It was you. I think it was Menifee, right? Dave Menifee. And you had a guy named by the last name of White, a big guy, White guy. His last name was White. Anyway, you fight Bob White, and one of my black belts fought Menifee, and it was all tied at the end of the two fights. And I was going to fight this guy, and you said, no, we're going to stop the matches. We're going to bring someone else in. And you brought in the toughest #1 fighter in Arizona, Mason, right? George Mason, George Mason.
Yeah.
And I had beaten him at the internationals, and he comes running out of the stands. And you were having you had such a good tournament that day. Steve Nasty Anderson and everybody was there. And I knew I was going to smoke that other guy, but I knew I was going to be in for a battle with George because George was tough. And so we went into overtime, and I ended up hitting him with a nice heel kick up in the head, and we won the team. But Steve Nasty Anderson came up to me and says, Dave, no one beats that George guy here in Arizona. He wins everything. I said, really? I said, well, not today. So that was a good fight too. That guy was tough. George was tough.
But George came up under one of my original instructor, Lonnie Coots, and he was when he came up, I can remember I used to beat the hell out of him when he was I was like a green belt, I think, when he started, and he came up, and eventually he went on, and he's probably the bad. He's a lightweight kind of guy, gangly as hell, unorthodox, but he's gotten a lot better as he's gotten older. Of course, now he's had hip surgery and everything else, but he was very good. And
tell him I said hi.
A really good tournament.
Yeah, tell him I said hi. We fought twice, and I was lucky to win both. That guy was one of the toughest guys too I ever fought. He had a great body punch, man. He put his fist through my chest one of those times, so he was tough. Please tell him I said hello.
Yeah, I will. Ask Bob White. We all know that the two basic karate point blank things are back fist and a reverse punch. Reverse punch is the all-time go-to maneuver. You got to have a reverse punch. Not too many people ever win that don't have a reverse punch.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of a have to. But anyway, thanks to Paul Casey for having this forum. I think it's great. There's a lot more future people coming on, and probably a lot of reviews. Maybe second interviews with people and stuff to share more. And I think it's good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dennis. We appreciate that and your contributions. And then, so now I'm going to end it all up. I'm going to unmute everybody, say thank you very much for being a part of the Hall of Fame right now. And we're going to just go with everybody. Please say goodbye to Mr. David Brock.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame, we'd like to thank our special guest, Mr. David Brock. God bless everybody. Have a great night. Take care. Be safe.